the Organization of African Unity by His Imperial Majesty Emperor Haile Selassie I. We therefore call for an urgent meeting with you to continue the reasoning with you and your relevant ministers before the Ethiopian New Year on September 11, 2013. All of these issues, Madam Prime Minister, are indicative of our rights and aspirations as a protected indigenous people. Through that continuing consultative process, we hope to establish an ongoing relationship for the effective engagement with the government on our community's agenda. So now it is with great pleasure that I welcome to the podium to address the closing ceremony of the second Rastafari Studies Conference and General Assembly, the Prime Minister of Jamaica, the Most Honorable Portia Simpson-Miller.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, our Rastafarian ambassador, and let me recognize in a very special way my brother and friend, Dr. Garvey. Son of our national hero, Marcus Mazaga. Sister Mitzi, Queen Mother Moses, Brother Marcus Goff, and I must recognize in a very special way one of the outstanding historians of our region, Professor Shepherd. Before I begin, I'd like to ask the brethren that gave me this to forward to Professor Shepherd contact so that I'll be able to reach you on this particular matter. Brothers and sisters, I am pleased to have been invited to participate in this very significant conference in celebration of one of Jamaica's foremost creations, the indigenous culture of Rastafari. Let me also take the opportunity to congratulate the University of the West Indies, the Rastafari Studies Unit of the Institute of Caribbean Studies, with leadership from Dr. Jalani Naya, and the Office of the Principal for their insight, foresight, and vision that led them to the second staging of this important conference. The UWI continues to be one of those beacons that shines its academic light on the major elements of our society, holding them up to international intellectual discourse and scrutiny as part of the process of promoting our prowess to the world. The university has demonstrated its leadership and substance in the creation of so many of the leaders of our region. Walter Rodney, one of the great minds produced by this university, demonstrated the power of groundings with the brothers and also with the sisters, many of them Rastafarians. We sought to make knowledge available to those who could not gain access to the university because of social circumstances. The example that he set has been followed by countless other UWI academics conscious of their responsibility to the descendants who labored on this very former plantation. Their names are inscribed on the monument which you have erected at the campus gate. I also want to commend the Rastafari community led by the Ethio-Africa Diaspora Union Millennium Council, chaired by Sister Mitzi, another daughter of Nani. She is emboldened by the spirit of the women who labored on the Mona plantation, including Misbehavior, Queen, Bashful, Fidelia, and Catalina Rutherford. And speaking of sisters, I continue to be proud of the progress of the sisters on this campus, even as we urge the brothers to also make use of their right to tertiary education. I also know that the female majority on this campus is not of recent origin, but was a feature of this space in the 19th century. Yes, females, black females, outnumbered males on Mona plantation back in 1832. So, empresses have been here for a long time. Brothers and sisters, I remember and thank those Rastafarian leaders who came to share with me just before I traveled to Ethiopia to participate in the 50th anniversary summit of heads of government of the African Union. Jamaica salutes Rastafari for their contribution to the potency of Jamaican culture and heritage. We pay homage to the spiritual movement in indigenous culture and religion. Rastafari had its earliest beginnings in the turbulent 1930s, when working class Jamaicans were experiencing difficulty negotiating for better living and working conditions. It was a time in which the poor black majority was not allowed to access the kinds of lifestyles or places that were the monopoly of the minority population, or those others who, by dint of their complexion, were considered more worthy to access them. It was a society in which things African were deemed inferior, and the black population, by consequence, was undervalued. It was a period in our history, and we still see, at least you have a prime minister, the present prime minister, coming from humble beginnings, from the womb of the people of this country. It was a period in our history, and we still see residues of this even in today's Jamaica, when the black poor was relegated to the underclass and were not expected to rise to any position of power and influence. Rastafari spoke up for the marginalized poor, on which they would build confidence and ultimately their lives and that of their families. In all of this, the message was equal rights and justice for the black majority, for whom cold ground was their bed and rock stone their pillow. Amidst the foray of confusion and mayhem in the 1930s, Leonard Howell dared to stand up against the status quo. He fashioned a movement to redefine the Jamaican cultural space by positioning Africa at the center of our cultural discourse and identity politics. Our language and posture changed. as we move from being object to perennial subject, and I, in the words of the Right Excellent Marcus Mosiah Garvey, whose 126th Earth Day we will celebrate on Saturday. We became masters of our own destiny. Rastafari became a significant platform on which the restoration of the dignity of African people has been built. It is a bold movement determined to counter hegemony by promoting the equality of things African. It was this movement's way of seeking to restore dignity and integrity to the majority black population of our country by re-establishing as a point of reference their original identity in their African roots and traditions. In all of it, Nyabingi became the war cry and Rastafari the response. Through the mid to late 20th century, Rastafari became the bedrock of many who walked from First Street to Second Street to Third Street, who lived in government yard, cooked and shared cornmeal porridge while witnessing, then rejecting the rat race in which the human race had become embroiled. It is significant that this year commemorates 50 years of Coral Gardens, the incident which culminated in the members of this Afrocentric movement being set upon in the manner they were is one of the most unfortunate aspects of our modern history. I invite you to pause for a moment of silence to pay respect to those who died at Coral Gardens 50 years ago, those who survived, and those whose survival has been the benchmark of the power of this movement. Blessed.